You've likely seen at least a few acts from a magician at some point in your life. Often it involves some sort of card trick or disappearing object, or even an escape from an impossible situation. For the most part, these tricks aren't very dangerous, and if they are, the television networks step in because they don't want a slew of lawsuits arriving at their door if anything bad should happen. Nonetheless, quite a few magicians have met their ends while performing their acts, often in front of a large crowd. From fiery explosions to malfunctioning props to natural causes, push that subscribe button and prepare to see some acts which just didn't come off well for anyone involved. The bullet catch. Many magicians have incorporated an act into their routine where they catch a bullet that is fired at them. Not to wreck it for you, but in almost every instance the gun is firing a blank. That said, accidents do happen, as Madame Delinsky found out. During one performance, a squad of soldiers fired their guns at Delinsky. Each of the 6 guns should have been loaded with a blank. However, one soldier clearly slipped up and loaded the real thing. Needless to say, the magician did not catch that bullet, and she died from her wounds. Amateur mistake. Inspired by professionals, more than a few people around the world try to emulate their heroes, with dire results. Janaka Baznayaki was fascinated with the ability of modern-day magicians to bury themselves and survive underground, so he decided to try it himself. With family and friends helping, the Sri Lankan man buried himself in a box in his biggest magical stunt to date. It would also prove to be his last. You see, after several hours buried, Baznayaki was unconscious when he was eventually dug up. He later died in the hospital. Not part of the act. Jeff Rayburn Hooper was an amateur magician who had a gig at the Winona Lake Bible Conference in 1984. Before his big show, Hooper decided to practice one of his tricks. So he handcuffed himself and jumped into the nearby lake. Swimming out 100 yards from the shore, he successfully freed himself from his cuffs. Unfortunately, the wind was really strong that day. In the rough water, an already tired Hooper was unable to swim back to the shore and ended up drowning in 6 feet of water. The Coffin-ESCAPE. Joseph Burris loved magic and compared himself with the legendary Harry Houdini. Not afraid to push the limits, Burris decided to perform a stunt he had already tried once, being buried alive in a coffin. In this instance, the coffin was a plastic and glass box. Buried several feet deep, Burris was chained and had to escape the box before his air ran out. In addition to dirt, he opted to be covered in concrete. This change had fatal consequences as the weight proved too much for the box, which collapsed, killing Burris in front of horrified spectators. The milk can. Harry Houdini is obviously an idol to many magicians. The result is that they often try to copy his feats of magic. Royden Joseph Gilbert, Raison de la Ginesta, was one such performer. Ginesta's famed routine involved escaping from a locked milk can. A Houdini classic, Ginesta had accomplished the trick several times before. In 1930, however, things went wrong. The can had actually been dropped beforehand, and the damage had compromised the hidden escape latch that normally allowed Ginesta to slip out. Locked in a can full of water, Ginesta drowned before his helpers realized things had gone horribly wrong. The speeding KARR. South African Charles Rowan was better known as KARR the Magician. One act Rowan performed, which thrilled audiences, involved him having to escape from a straitjacket before a speeding car hit him. He had performed the trick numerous times before, but as you can likely guess, his luck ran out in 1930. With only around 15 seconds to act, he was just a little too slow in getting free. As a result, KARR was hit by the speeding vehicle and died as a result of his injuries. Natural causes. Tommy Cooper was a comedian who also incorporated small magic tricks into his act to add to the laughs. One night, while performing on live television, Cooper was just getting his act underway when he suffered a massive heart attack. For around a minute, cameras captured Cooper struggling on the ground while audiences laughed, believing it was all part of the act. Eventually, the TV went to an unscheduled break and the audience discovered the horrible reality of what they had just witnessed. Up in flames. Born Sigmund Neuberger, he became better known in the world of magic as the Great Lafayette. His acts amazed everyone as they usually incorporated live lions and even his pet dog Beauty. In 1911, while performing at the Empire Theatre in Edinburgh, Scotland, tragedy struck. Lafayette was taking his bows following a successful performance when a lamp exploded and started a fire. The crowd escaped the theater, but several people on stage, including Lafayette, did not escape. Investigations later showed that stage doors had been locked, likely by Lafayette as a way to guard his secrets. In the end, this likely ensured his doom. With a bang. Incorporating fire and small explosions during the act is a staple of many magicians. Naturally, it adds a level of flair for the audience, as well as a bit of danger. Johann Moeller found this out the hard way. Better known as Balla Brega, one of Moeller's illusions involved making several women dressed as moths disappear in a spectacular flash of fire. The effect was achieved by using a certain gas, which wasn't too explosive. In Brazil, during one performance, Balla Brega had to substitute in acetylene. While setting up the crowd-pleasing illusion, a bag of acetylene exploded, killing the magician and his assistant in a rather spectacular and gruesome way. He's not dead yet. Washington Irving Bishop was a 19th century magician who freaked out audiences everywhere by reading their minds. Unfortunately, he suffered from a rare medical condition that caused him to fall into a catatonic state from time to time. To address this, Bishop carried a letter with him to advise anyone who ever found him in such a state that he was very much alive and would just snap out of it. Eventually, he forgot to bring this letter with him during a show in 1889. Collapsing to the floor, people thought he was dead. Authorities performed an autopsy on him mere hours later. We're thinking if cutting his chest open didn't do the trick, and the decision to remove his brain definitely did. Yikes. Well, those are some rather unfortunate and terrible ways to go. If magic and illusions are your thing, then be sure to check out all the related videos we have for you here at The Richest. There's even tips on how to perform some of the tricks yourself. Just be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.